This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for your kind attention this morning. I have a very exciting, revolutionary approach to Tefilla that could really elevate and upgrade our appreciation for what we're doing when we're davening. Sometimes it becomes a matter of routine, and I think this presentation will really upgrade our entire approach to davening. Let me begin by telling you a story that's cited in the Medrash. The Medrash tells us about the Roman siege of the Beis HaMikdash. And the Gemara tells us that ultimately, after surrounding the walls of Yerushalayim, they breached the walls of Jerusalem, and they're standing at the threshold of the temple, and they're sort of apprehensive to go inside. They heard the stories of people who went in unauthorized and what happened to them, and they wanted to test the waters a little bit, and they decided to choose a guinea pig. They were going to send in a Jew to the temple to defile the temple. They would see what happened, and if he made it through, they were going to go in and destroy. So which Jew would agree to go into the temple and defile the temple? They chose a Jewish traitor. His name was Yoshiya. Yoshiya Meshisa, a heretic, a rebel, a traitor. They say, Yosi, go into the temple, and whatever you take is yours. You can take anything. It's like, when my father tells me, okay, Donnie, go into my drawer and take whatever tie you want. You can take any tie. No, don't. So they said, take whatever item you want. So Yossi goes in, he's looking around, he sees a shulchan, he sees the aron, he sees the menorah, he likes the menorah, he grabs the menorah, he walks out with the menorah. And the Roman governor is looking at it. He said, no, you could take anything, not the menorah. You can't take the menorah. The menorah belongs to the general. Just go in again, take anything else, whatever you want. You have good taste, you also have good taste. You took the wrong item. You could take anything else. You could take the aron, you could take the shulchan, whatever you want. No, thank you. What do you mean, no thank you? It's worth millions of dollars. No thanks. Yossi, we're telling you to go in. We're not asking you. We're telling you to go in. I'm not going. He says, Yossi, if you go in, we're going to relieve you of taxes for a year. I'm not going. Yossi, if you go in, we're going to reward you handsomely. I'm not going. Yossi, if you don't go in, we're going to torture you to death. I'm not going. Yosef Meshisa, the traitor, the rebel, the one who violated the temple the first time, did not go in again, and he gave up his life al Kiddush Hashem. So the Panovich Rav would ask, what happened to the man? Minutes earlier, he was willing to go into the temple and defile the temple, and now he's willing to give up his life al Kiddush Hashem. What happened to the man? Says the Panovich Rav, what happened to him was he went into the Beis HaMikdash. And when one goes into the Beis HaMikdash, it changes you. You become a different person. You become elevated. And he was transformed from a Rasha to a Tzaddik by entering the Beis HaMikdash. You know the famous contradiction in the beginning of Sefer Vayikra? It says by the carbon oila, Yakriv oisai lertsainai. He has to bring the carbon, he does it willingly. So the Gemara asks, does he have to bring it, or does he do it willingly? So the Gemara says, Kaifin oisai, we force him ad sheyoymar until he says, Roitzani, I want to do it. But the Chassam Sofer would explain as follows. Chassam Sofer would explain, here you have a guy, he sinned, and he's not really interested in bringing a carbon, because in his mind, the furthest thing from his mind is the desire to gain atonement, the desire to come close to Hashem, the desire to cleanse his soul from a sin. So to speak, we have to coax him. Okay, go to the temple, go to the Beis HaMikdash, bring a carbon. He doesn't want to do it. But the moment he steps foot inside the Beis HaMikdash and he sees the Avodah and he sees the Kohanim serving Hashem, he sees people who they've given over their whole lives in the service of Hashem, L'Rtzainai, now he wants to do it. So at first we had to coax him into it. In the end, he wants to do it. if only we had the opportunity to enter the Beis HaMikdash, imagine what it would do to us. Imagine how it would change us. And what I would like to share with you briefly this morning is that we do have the opportunity to enter the Beis HaMikdash, and we could do it quite often. Let me begin by sharing with you how this whole approach developed for me. I want to share with you a very interesting halacha. So you wake up in the morning. What's the first thing a Jew does when they wake up in the morning? You say, Maida'ani. Maida'ani l'fanecha. I thank you, Hashem, Melech Chai v'Kayam, living and enduring God, Shehachazarta bi nishmasi, that you returned my soul. B'chemla, with mercy. Kama, pause. Rabba emunasecha, great is your faith. Many people make a mistake. They say, B'chemla Rabba, with great mercy. No, that's incorrect. It's B'chemla, with mercy. Kama, Rabba emunasecha. And then what do we do next? What's the first thing we do in the morning? Even before this, you're not allowed to touch food. You're not allowed to touch your eyes. You're not allowed to touch your ears. You're not allowed to touch your nose. You wash your hands 3 times. Negel Wasser. Because in the course of the nighttime, the soul goes up to Shamayim. When the soul goes up to Shamayim, the body becomes a vacuum of Kedusha. So all the forces of impurity come onto your body. So when you wake up in the morning and the soul returns to your body, the soul banishes the forces of impurity. They're left on your fingers. You want to remove them. You don't touch your eyes in the morning, even on top of the eye, before you wash Negel Wasser. Even with the eye closed, even with the ear closed, even on top of your mouth. You don't want the impurity getting into you. Preferably, you do it as soon as you can, within 4 cubits of where you're sleeping. But you try to wash your hands as soon as possible. Negel Wasser. Did you know that there's really another time in the morning you need to wash your hands? Either the last thing you do before you leave your house, or the first thing you do when you get to shul. You wash your hands and you make a bracha. You know what bracha you say? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilas yadayim. It's a second washing. L'chatchila, it's a second washing. Because when you wash the first time, after that, presumably you're going to the bathroom in the morning, you're getting dressed, you're touching your feet, so your hands are going to be not clean again. You wash them again before Tefilla and you make the bracha al netilas yadayim. Did you ever wonder why in the world am I making a bracha of al netilas yadayim? Don't you only make al netilas yadayim for bread? I'm not eating bread in the morning. You're not supposed to eat a meal before you pray. Why do we make the bracha al netilas yadayim? Interesting question, no? You ever think of that? So the Rashba has a tshuva. And the Rashba writes in a tshuva that every morning for a Jew is inaugurating a new service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like a kohen who would enter the Beis HaMikdash. What would a kohen do to inaugurate his daily service of the Beis HaMikdash? He would go to the kiyar and wash his hands from the kiyar. Every Jew is a kohen in some sense. You're mamleches kohanim. You're a kingdom of kohanim, of priests. Every day that you're serving Hashem, you're like a kohen who's going to enter the Beis HaMikdash. You need to wash your hands, and Chazal have enacted a bracha of al netilas yadayim. So if I flew here, I don't know, a few thousand miles from New York, just to share that you got to wash your hands twice in the morning, it's worth it. It's worth it. Every morning you think, right before you daven, you could do it here, wherever the sink is. You could do it back at home, right before you leave. You wash your hands, you say netilas yadayim, and you think, I'm inaugurating my service of Hashem like a kohen who's entering the Beis HaMikdash. You know, I know in Australia everybody is very proper and courteous, but I'm going to ask you a personal question now. How many people here are kohanim? I don't think there was anybody. Because Gary got the kohen aliyah, I got the Levi aliyah, I'm not a Levi, my father wasn't a Levi. Going back many generations, since David HaMelech, nobody in my family was a Levi. So nobody here is a kohen, but we all wash netilas yadayim in the morning to be like kohanim, but we're not kohanim. So why do we need to wash our hands like a kohen who's inaugurating his avodah in the Beis HaMikdash? Also, we don't enter the Beis HaMikdash. What's the name of this shul? central synagogue. With all due respect, is it the Beis HaMikdash? Don't answer that. So what exactly is this halacha that we wash our hands in the morning like a kohen who enters the Beis HaMikdash? Now I want to share with you another halacha and bookend this. There's a halacha in Shulchan Aruch Siman Tzadi Dalet, I call it the most misunderstood halacha in the Shulchan Aruch. Help me out over here. So Australia is south east of Israel? Yeah. So you face northwest?
Yeah.
So the Aron is northwest? Or
north or west.
North or west, okay. Technically speaking, when you pray, you face northwest. Officially, right?
Can't look crooked though.
I know. Even in New York, we have the same issues. We have to do, southeast. It's mostly east. It's a little bit, it's a little bit south. But technically speaking, you face northwest. Okay. The Shulchan Aruch tells us, when you get up to daven, if you're standing in Chutz Aretz, Yachzir panav keneged Eretz Yisrael. Turn in the direction of the land of Israel. Okay, so you do that. But then the Shulchan Aruch says, V'yechavein gam lYerushalayim. You should, I think most people understand this to mean, you should direct yourself toward Jerusalem, Ula Mikdash, and to the temple, Ula Beis Kodesh HaKadoshim, and to the Holy of Holies. So I ask you one simple question. You're standing in Sydney. It's a nice place. It's a beautiful city. You're now moving northwest, okay? Facing northwest. Why? To face the land of Israel. So I'm facing northwest. Now, but that's not good enough, because you have to face Jerusalem. Okay, so what should I do now? Is there like a milli degree that I need to turn myself? Okay, I'm facing Israel. Face Jerusalem? Okay. Now, face the temple. Okay, now what do I do? I can further direct, once I'm facing the land of Israel in Sydney, I cannot further direct myself toward Jerusalem, toward the Beis HaMikdash, and toward the Holy of Holies. So what does the Shulchan Aruch mean? Direct myself toward Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash and the Holy of Holies, says the Mishnah Berurah. It does not mean you face Yerushalayim. You do not face Jerusalem when you pray. You face Israel when you pray. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what it means is, Ratzaloymar, Yechavein Libai. Think in your heart, it is impossible to be facing these locations, but imagine in your heart and your thoughts, as if you're standing in the Beis HaMikdash, Asher b'Yerushalayim, b'Machon Kodesh HaKadoshim. You don't face the temple, you don't face the Holy of Holies, you imagine yourself as if you're standing in the temple in the Holy of Holies. So that's a halacha. That when you daven Shemona Esrei, you close your eyes for a moment and you think, I am now transporting myself from Bondi Junction. Where are we? Bondi Junction. Pretty good. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I know where I am. From Bondi Junction, and I am now standing in the temple in Jerusalem in the Holy of Holies. I have a cousin. Halachically, you're not allowed to go to the Har HaBayis. Halachically, you can't go to there are many halachic issues with going there. But I have a close relative that goes there, so he visited me recently, and I said, I go to the Temple Mount more often than you do. He said, what? You don't go to them? I said, I go there 3 times a day. Every time that I daven Shemona Esrei, you're going to the Temple Mount. You're standing in the Holy of Holies. So now let's bookend this. That means when I wake up in the morning, I wash my hands and I make a bracha until I'm like a kohen who's washing his hands from the kiyar to begin his avodah in the Beis HaMikdash. And by the time I get to Shemona Esrei, I've made it all the way until the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So is it that I wash my hands and I jump into the Kodesh HaKadoshim the moment that Shemona Esrei begins? Or maybe there's a process of how I get from washing my hands into the Holy of Holies. And this is where this chart comes from. you're welcome to keep it. With permission from Art Scroll, my wife designed based on the approach of Reb Shimon Schwab and Rabbi Yaakov Emden. And this is really an amazing approach. It's not just that we wash our hands in the morning and we're like a kohen, and by the time we get to Shemona Esrei, we are in the Holy of Holies. Actually, every single part and chapter and paragraph of davening parallels the temple, so that each part is enabling us to make our way from the Ezras Nashim to the Ezras Yisrael to the Ezras Kohanim to the Ulam to the Heichal to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So let us begin this journey. It's a journey that we make every single morning, and having this understanding, appreciation, will really forever upgrade and elevate our tefillah. So what happened was, if somebody wanted to go to the temple in the morning, temple opened for business at Alois HaShachar, at the crack of dawn. But many people would come to the temple before the crack of dawn, and what would they do? They would stand in the Ezras Nashim, and they would say Tehillim, and they would say praises of Hashem. And those introductory prayers, Ma Toivu Adonai Olam Yigdal, correspond to the Ezras Nashim. It's now time to climb. How many steps led up from the Ezras Nashim to the Ezras Yisrael? Shir Hamalis. How many Shir Hamalises do we say? 15 Shir Hamalises in Tehillim, corresponding to the 15 steps, taking you up from the Ezras Nashim to the Ezras Yisrael. How many Berchos HaShachar are there? Lasach vivina l'havchem ben yom u'ben loila, sh'loisani goy, sh'loisani aved, sh'loisani isha, pekei achivrim, malbesh arum, matir asurim. There are 15 Berchos HaShachar. You think it's a coincidence that there are 15 Berchos HaShachar? Of course not. The 15 Berchos HaShachar correspond to the 15 stairs that lead up from the Ezras Nashim to the Ezras Yisrael. Now you're up to the Ezras Yisrael. Little trivia question. Can a Gentile go into the temple? Sure. Could a Gentile bring karbanos, offerings? Absolutely. But he can't go past the Ezras Nashim. He can't go into the Ezras Yisrael. There was a sign there, no Gentiles allowed. So it was a little bit of a sensitive entrance, because basically the Jew that entered had to leave the non-Jewish world behind. So it was somewhat, it could be dangerous. The part of davening that we say, Ashreinu, ma tov chalkeinu, umanoim gairaleinu, and we say the Kriya Shema. Kriya Shema is a symbol of giving up our life, al Kiddush Hashem, represents the entrance from the Ezras Nashim into the Ezras Yisrael. Friends, we're ready to go into the Ezras Kohanim. Now, by the way, it's a beautiful davening here in Sydney. Today's Thursday. An hour on Thursday? Nah, in New York, you can't get away with an hour davening. No way. No. It's a nice slow davening here. It's like it's very respectable. Anyway, that's if you come at 6:30. What time is Baruch Hu here? Like 6:45? 6:50? 6:52. That's very good. It gives you time to say karbanos. Yeah? Do you have to say karbanos? It's certainly a nice thing to do. Is it obligatory? The bare bones minimum karbanos that you need to say, halachically, is the Parsha Satamid. Okay, so if you only have, let's say, you're running late. By the way, here's another thing. The key of davening in a shul is starting Shemona Esrei with the tzibur. That is the purpose of going to shul. The definition of davening with a minyan is starting the personal Shemona Esrei with 10 Jews. Otherwise, it's very nice. You came to shul, you came to God's house, but it's considered davening with a minyan when you start the Shemona Esrei with the shul. You need to do everything you can to navigate that, which means if you come a little bit late, you have to skip. You'll skip part of Sukkah Zimra. If you need to, only Baruch She'amar Ashrei Yishtabach to allow you to start Shemona Esrei with the tzibur. But you need to say a minimum karban, Parshas HaTamid. Parshas HaTamid is the minimum karban. In fact, the Bir Halacha says even women should say the Parshas HaTamid. I once said that Rabbi Yashiv says also that women should say the Parshas HaTamid. In no girls' schools, even in New York, they don't tell them to say the Parshas HaTamid. But my mother, my wife, everyone's been starting to say the Parshas HaTamid. a Rav in Lakewood heard that I said that women should say the Parsha Tamid. He's a Talmud of Rabbi Yashiv. He said he never heard Rabbi Yashiv say it, so they took it to all the Talmidim of Rabbi Yashiv. I don't know. All I know is Rabbi Yashiv wrote that women should say the Parsha Tamid, and the Mishnah Berurah also said, I'm not here to tell you what women should do. You ask your people. But I'm just pointing out, for men, certainly the bare bones minimum of karbanos is the Parsha Tamid. If you could do more, if you could say the Ketairas, if you could say Ezel Makaman, Kal Hamar B'Hareza Meshubach. The Shulchan Aruch Harav says Parshat Tamid is a chiyuv. In any event, karbanos correspond to the Ezras Kaihanim and the Mizbeach. So when you're saying karbanos in the morning, you could take out your handy card and you could say, hey, I'm walking by the Mizbeach. I'm visiting the Mizbeach. I'm encountering the Mizbeach. Okay, friends, we're about to get into the inner sanctum of the Ulam. If you look on your diagram here, the Ulam is the widened entranceway. Right over here, you see where I'm pointing, the widened entranceway. And before the Ulam, you have stairs. You know how many stairs are there? 12 stairs. Plus the platform is 13. You know what part of davening corresponds to that? Rabbi Shmuel Oimer b'shalosh esrei midos haTorah nidreshes bahem. Rabbi Shmuel taught the Torah is expounded with the 13 hermeneutic principles of exegesis, whatever that means, right? The 13 midos that the Torah is expounded upon. That corresponds to the 12 stairs and the platform leading up from the Ezras Kaihanim, taking you into the Ulam. We're now in the Ulam. You see the Ulam? The Ulam is the wide entrance hallway before the Heichal. It has an entrance, it has an exit. The entrance of the Ulam is Baruch Sha'amar. The exit of the Ulam is Yishtabach. You have it on your chart. The entranceway, Baruch Sha'amar. The exit is Yishtabach. By the way, if you were in the Ulam and you would look up to the ceiling, there were chains that came down from the ceiling. Chazal say that the young Kohanim would climb up and down these chains because on the ceiling in the Ulam were two crowns. One was of Zerubbabel and one was the Melech HaMashiach. And Psukei de Zimra is compared to chains because one paragraph of Psukei de Zimra leads to the next. We're now ready for the holiest spot on earth. Or almost. And that is the Kodesh. So if I'm entering the Kodesh from east to west, who knows what vessel was on my north side and what vessel was on my south side to my left. As I enter the Kodesh, to my right in the north is the Shulchan that had the showbread. To my left on the south is the menorah. That is why the Gemara says that when you pray Shemona Esrei, if you want to become wealthy, turn a little to the north. The siman is, the Shulchan is in the north. If you want to become wise, turn a little to the south. The siman is the menorah in the south. Let's say you want wealth and wisdom, you're not going to have either. I would go with the wisdom, because then maybe you have a chance of holding on to your money. But if you just get the money, and you don't have any wisdom, you'll probably lose it anyway. So, move to Australia. Then you're facing. You're in the south, but what are you facing? Northwest. Northwest. Yeah, south. Yeah. Yeah, that's why Jews came to Australia, because they want to become wise. Did that work out? You'll let me know. Okay. Friends, there are two ways to recognize God in this world. One way is to study the physical phenomenon of the universe, the human body, the celestial spheres, the ecosystem, the processes of the body, which are all miraculous. By studying the physical world, we recognize God. That is represented by the Shulchan in the north. The Shulchan in the north represents the physical universe. That in the Tefilla is represented by the bracha, the longest bracha that was ever composed. Yoitzer ar ubayrei choshech oisa shalom ubayrei es hakol. That bracha represents the Shulchan. But there's an even greater way to recognize God in this world, not by studying the physical phenomenon of this world, but by studying Torah. Studying Torah gives a Jew the intuition and the conviction of the reality of the Creator. More than studying nature. Studying Torah, when a person learns Gemara, Mishnah, Chumash, you're makir, you recognize Misha Amar V'Haya Ha'ilam, the one who created the world. God gave us a Torah to understand and recognize Him. That is represented by the menorah. The menorah represents the Torah, and Ahava Rabbah, or Ahava Soilam, represents the menorah. The menorah represents the light of the Torah. Do you remember in Chazal, if somebody would say a good svara in learning, a good idea in learning, the compliment given was kaftar vaferach, buttons and knobs. I would have a Rebbe in Yeshiva if he asked a good kasha. He would say, oh, gevaldik, kaftar vaferach, buttons and knobs. So, because the influence of Torah would come down to the world through the medium of the menorah. So you have these two kalim. The shulchan represents the physical world. That is reflected in the bracha, Yoitzer Ar Ubayrei Choshech. The menorah represents the Torah, is reflected by the bracha, Ahava Rabba Ahavtanu Hashem Elokeinu. Front and center is a mizbeach. Which mizbeach? Mizbeach HaKetoras. The incense mizbeach. What is brought on this mizbeach? Not animals, karbanos. I'm sorry, incense. Incense. You don't eat it, you smell it. The soul smells it. That represents Kriya Shema. Friends, I want to share with you something very important. One of the primary kavanos to have when one says Kriya Shema is that if ever put to the ultimate challenge, one would give up their life al Kiddush Hashem. That is what it means. Kabbalas oil malchus shamayim, accepting the yoke of heaven with all of your soul, b'chol nafshecha. When one says Shema, they should have at least two kavanos before they say Shema. One should think, I am now fulfilling the biblical obligation of saying Shema. One should also think, if ever put to the ultimate test, one would give up their life al Kiddush Hashem. Shema represents the Mizbeach HaKetoras. The Ketoras is something the soul benefits from. Shema is the offering of the soul. We have one more item in the Beis HaMikdash before the Holy of Holies, the Paroiches. The Paroiches represents the bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, Go'al Yisrael. And when you're standing Shemona Esrei, you imagine yourself standing where? In the Holy of Holies. So it's not that you woke up in the morning, washed your hand like a kohen, and when you got to Shemona Esrei, oh, boom, I magically found myself in the Holy of Holies. Tefilla is literally a progression, starting with the 15 blessings we make in the morning that take us up the 15 steps. The prayers before Karbanos takes us through the Ezras Yisrael. Karbanos correspond to the Mizbeach and the Ezras Kohanim. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, the 12 steps and the platform leading us up to the Heichal. Baruch Sha'amar, Psukei Zimra Yishtabach, the Heichal. Entrance, Baruch Sha'amar. By the way, how many Baruchs are in Baruch Sha'amar? 13. How many praises in Yishtabach? 13. Shir ushvacha halel v'zimra oiz u'memshala netzach kedula u'gvura tila b'sveres kedusha u'malchus. How many segments of Psukei de Zimra? 13. All of Tefillah, by the way, is patterned after number 13. Rabbi Shmuel Omer, 13 Baruchs and Baruch Sha'amars, 13 segments of Psukei de Zimra, 13 praises in Yishtabach. How many requests do we make in Shemona Esrei? You have the first 3 introductory brachos, the 3 at the end, 13 middle requests. So 13 is the building block of Tefillah. The bracha of Yoitzer Or is the Shulchan. The bracha of Ahava Rabbah is the Menorah. Shema is the Mizbeach HaKetoras. The curtain is Go'al Yisrael. And when you daven Shemona Esrei, you're literally standing in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And therefore, when we complete our Shemona Esrei, listen to what we say. We say, God Almighty, you have allowed us, so to speak, virtually to enter the Holy of Holies. Please Hashem, we're ready for the real thing. Yehi ratzon milfanecha Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Avosenu sheyibane Beis Hamikdash b'mehera v'yameinu. Please bring the actual temple to us so we could do the actual avodah in the temple. But until then, every Jew has an elevated status. Every day we enter the holiest spot on earth, and therefore every single part of our tefillah is infused with great significance and great meaning. All of our tefillahs should always be received beracham and v'ratzain. Thank you for sharing your kind attention, and bracha v'atzlacha. All the best. Baruch Tiyah.
What do you say? With Kabbalah, that's very nice.
Yeah.
In the north, the supper starts 6 p.m. on Thursday, ends before 7. Ends after 7 we end Sunday.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.